All right, well, this is Ask the Inspector, so let's go to questions from our beloved audience. We have a few that were submitted in advance, and then we're going to take some live questions as well coming in on YouTube and Facebook. Ann Moss, on short notice, is with us, and she is curating the questions backstage, and we thank her for her assistance. The first question comes from Alex in Belgrade. Can a drone over the Kremlin be a false flag operation? Does Russia need an excuse for something after all the terrorist attacks on new Russian territories, as well as on territories recognized by the USA as the Russian Federation?
Look, anything is possible, but let's just be clear here. The Ukrainians said they were going to do this. All right, they straight up said they were going to do this. They said, we're going to put a drone in the Kremlin on Victory Day. We're going to attack the Kremlin. That's what they said. Now they've done it. Now the drone's hit. So it's like Joe Biden. I'm going to take out Nord Stream 2 if the Russians go into Ukraine. Russians go into Ukraine, Nord Stream 2 taken out. Who did it? Joe Biden confessed. The Ukrainians have confessed. Now people say, well, what should Russia do? I'm not a Russian. But I'll tell you this. If a state party said, we're going to hit the White House with a drone, and then the White House gets hit by a drone, that state party won't exist anymore. Don't you understand that? I hope people understand that if a drone hit the White House, those who sent the drone to the White House will not be living. End of story. So it's hypocritical to not think that Russia feels the same way. The Kremlin was hit. The Kremlin was hit. Putin's residence was hit. The seat of government was hit. If you don't understand the scope and scale of what that represents, they didn't destroy the Kremlin, but they struck the Kremlin. And I think we should stand by. Only Russia can decide how Russia will respond, but I know how America will respond, and I think it's only logical to believe that the Russians might be thinking the same way.
All right, here is Zelensky denying it.
Very easy. Yeah.
President Zelensky, you said, or perhaps...
Why would they accuse Ukraine of this at this moment?
I can repeat this message, and I think it will, at least will be understandable for everybody. We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory. We are defending our villages and cities. We don't have, enough weapon for this. That's why we don't use it anywhere. For us, that is the deficit. We can't spend it. And we didn't attack Putin. We leave it to tribunal.
It's because of a lack of ammunition that we should believe that they didn't do it. That was not the excuse that I expected to hear.
That's dead man talking. I have no use for that guy. Enjoy the videos while you can, because I think pretty soon he won't be making videos.
All right, let's move on to our next question. This is from Timur in the town you just left. I know it's early, but after a few tour meetings and 2 cities, do you have a feeling that the Russian people are willing to participate in the initiative to discuss nuclear disarmament, considering that this type of weapon is the only reason stopping direct military hostility from the West?
My initial take, and Timur, that's a very good question, but my initial take is this. There is no appetite for nuclear disarmament right now, given the reality of the circumstances. What Timur said is 100% correct, and I acknowledge this. If it weren't for Russia's nuclear arsenal, the conflict in Ukraine would be far different than it is right now. It would be a direct conflict between NATO and Russia that would be extending beyond the borders of Ukraine. The only thing that prevents that is that Russia would view that kind of confrontation as a potential existential confrontation that would trigger a nuclear response. And the West understands what that means. And so instead we have this proxy conflict where the West is doing everything but sending their troops in. So no, I don't think right now there's any appetite for nuclear disarmament. But I do get the feeling that the Russians are cognizant of the fact that this is not a situation that's sustainable, that this kind of high tension, um, you know, conflict between Russia and the collective West, both nuclear armed powers, has the potential of spinning out of control, and that means the end of the world. And they get it. They understand that. So I do believe that there is a desire in a post-Ukraine conflict, if a new European security framework could be established, like Russia wants, if dialogue could be initiated between Russia and the United States, that a process can be resumed that talks about arms control and the potential for nuclear disarmament. So they believe in the concept and the premise, but now is not the right time.
Eric Kilpatrick from Charleston, West Virginia. Why is it that all I hear about is a fourth-generation jet being sent to Ukraine? Why not our F-22s and 35 or F-18s? Are they not as capable as the F-16? And or what is the issue about using these jets and Ukraine, understanding that they will have to have U.S. pilots?
Well, first of all, no one's going to say, if an F-22, F-35, or F-18 goes to Ukraine, it's going to be flown by a U.S. pilot, and that means war between the United States and Russia. And nobody's asking for that right now. Nobody's pushing for that. The F-16, the F-16 is flown by a number of nations, and so the idea is that the Ukrainians will be able to transition to the F-16. It's an unrealistic expectation. The Ukrainians wouldn't be able to transition to the F-16 in an operationally meaningful fashion. But this is, pushing for the F-16 is a way of saying, allowing people to say, oh, well, Ukraine could have won except for the fact they didn't get the F-16s. If we had only given them the F-16s, then they wouldn't have lost this war. But look, if they got the F-16s, there'd just be a bunch of blown up F-16s. It's not going to change what's going on the ground in Ukraine today.
All right, Ben Taher from Libya. Recently, the Russians used Tu-95 and Tu-160 strategic bombers in the last strike on Ukraine. Does that mean the Russians have air superiority all over Ukraine now? And if that's the case, are we going to see the next generation of jet fighters being used from now on? Well, our audience sure knows a lot about equipment.
Russia already has air superiority all over Ukraine. What air superiority means is that you can impose your will at a given time and given place without fear of adequate interdiction. Meaning, if Russia wants to blow up target A, they can using air power. It doesn't mean that Russian airplanes can loiter over Ukraine. It doesn't mean that Ukraine doesn't have air defense. It means that Russia is able to overcome all of Ukraine's air defense to impose its will as required on any aspect of the battlefield. Air supremacy, as opposed to air superiority, air supremacy means you can go anywhere you want, fly anywhere you want without any fear of anything, that there's no contested airspace. There's still contested airspace in Ukraine. Ukraine still puts fighter planes up in the air. They still have air defense in certain areas. But Russia's able to overcome all those and impose its will. And that's what air superiority is. And that's that. Whether Russia's going to send in new generation fire, that's up to them. But you have to ask yourself why, to what end. If you already have the ability to put weapon A on target B, no matter what, you don't need to bring in all your toys. And in some cases, you want to hold some of these toys in reserve because you don't want to give away all your capabilities. Russia is still sitting on a tremendous arsenal of weaponry and technology that has not been brought to the Ukrainian battlefield because they understand the potential for follow-on conflict with NATO, and you don't want to give away show all your cards.
A name we'll all recognize, those of you who are regular viewers, Jackie Le Chevalier from Argentina. Would it help if people from all around the world sent messages to the Russian people encouraging them to support Scott's project? I'd certainly write something for Scott to carry with him during his tour. What do you think?
Well, Jackie, thank you very much for the sentiment and the offer. You don't need to, from what I'm understanding, you don't need to encourage this. This is, again, this has been one of the most heartwarming aspects of this tour is the absolute, um, I mean, love. I mean, but not, not romantic love. I'm talking about love, genuine human love, kindness. This the way the Russians have opened up their hearts on this tour. They don't need encouragement to do this. They are already doing this. What they need is partnership. They need people to. The Russians feel very isolated right now. That's something that I have picked up on, and it hurts because these are good people. These are really, really good people, and I think they're frustrated and they're hurt by the way the West has rejected them, and it's generating some anger and resentment on the part of Russians. I mean, I'll give you an example. In Novosibirsk, I went to the academic city outside of Novosibirsk, where all the universities and sort of a research park. And they have a wonderful, they have an archway coming in, and they call it the geese, the two geese, because it looks like two geese with their heads coming together. A great over thing with, I mean, they've got glass floors, so you walk over and you're looking down, looks like you're falling through. It's pretty intimidating. But but beneath it, they have this wonderful restaurant bar, and it's got a giant brewery in the back. Jeff, we'd like this place. And they brew, I mean, like I 16 different kinds of beer right there. And but they have this they have this beer festival every year where they invite the best craft beer makers in the world to come in. And this is the perfect venue for American craft beer, American craft beer brewers to come in and exchange ideas, celebrate life, do this. Everybody from around the world comes to this place, and from around Russia comes to this place. It's in June, I think, and they've built this wonderful bar, and they have photographs of Americans, memorabilia, the 50s, the actors, and all this Hollywood stars around there, and they play the greatest soundtrack. I mean, this is classic rock, all American rock, and they're there, and you just say this is the perfect place for Americans to come and enjoy. There's no Americans there, and here's the thing: they sit there now, they listen to the music, they eat the food, they look at the photographs, but they're beyond that now. They're talking about the Chinese, they're talking about the Iranians, they're talking about the Indians, they're talking about anybody but America. They're talking about all the people that are coming in and working with it. And while there might be some anger and resentment in their hearts, they're living life and they're doing good. They're doing great. I mean, again, anybody thinks sanctions is going to hurt these people, you haven't a clue what you're talking about. These guys are industrious, they're hardworking, they're innovative, they're cutting edge, they're everything you want. Oh, they don't have the computer chip. They got the computer chips. They got everything, and they got brains that work, and they're doing quite well. But it was just sad because I'm sitting there saying, this would be a perfect place for an Oregon.
Well, I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I know not everybody there speaks English. So what's the deal on pumping American rock tunes one after the other? They just kind of like
they like the music,
just the feel of it, even if they don't understand the lyrics.
Well, a lot of people speak English, but you don't have to speak English to enjoy good music. But again, it's the vibe. The vibe of this place was supposed to be, they were supposed to basically replicate an American microbrewery. And so that's what they did. They built an American microbrewery in Novosibirsk that creates great beer, a whole bunch of different IPAs, wheat beer, everything. And yet now America's opted out. America's opted out. And so they're moving on. They're living life. They haven't stopped living. It's not like, oh no, the Americans aren't coming, we must shut up and not do it. No, it's like, darn, would have been nice if the Americans were here, but we're gonna get on with our lives. And that's the thing. Hey, America, we're being left behind. We're being left behind. And we don't want to be left behind. Okay, we need to be in here. We need to be working with these people in a cooperative fashion. They don't need us to succeed. This isn't the 1990s where everybody's waiting for America to arrive to save the day. This ain't about saving the day, guys. This is about learning from these people. These Russians are doing things that could benefit the United States, and there's no reason why we shouldn't have our business leaders in here learning from these people, adapting, some of their technologies and techniques and methodologies, and bringing it home to America and help make America a better place to live.
Such an important point. I hope that the people who need to hear that hear it. Camilla Broderson from Denmark. For the sake of getting to know our Russian brethren better, speaking of which, you were just talking about that, my boyfriend and I started watching Russian movies. In Moscow Does Not Believe in Tears, there's a scene with a man and woman talking after the man had left her and then returned. They drink heavily, bang a dried fish on the table, and put their hands on top of the fish. What's with the fish? Do you know anything about this?
I mean, I'm familiar with the scene. I can't get it. I don't know. This is why I'm in Russia. I'm trying to learn questions about what's with the fish. I know that Russians love herring. They love fish. But I don't know what the symbology of that is. I don't know. I just don't know. I'll find out.
While you're there, can you make that one of your journalistic goals to find out the answer to that?
I promise that I will find out the answer, if an answer exists to that.
Oh, it could be just a big...
I don't know.
All right. I just made a note.
But it's a great movie, by the way. It's a great movie. I strongly recommend the movie, and if you're a lady or a man prone to tears, bring a box of Kleenex.
Okay. Buck Rogers from Singapore. Thanks to everybody making the donations, by the way. We see it. We appreciate it. What are 3 futuristic, game-changing weapons or technologies of war that come to your mind? Why? Because you asked, Buck. That's why.
I think drones have already made their appearance, and they're just going to become more innovative, and I think you're going to see drones integrated into more aspects of war. Electronic warfare is very important, and it's not just with drones, but it's everything. We're so digitally interconnected to jam that, to be able to prevent that kind of connectivity is essential in modern war. And then I'm just going to go caveman on you. I think this war has shown that maybe the most important factor is the man on the ground, the boots on the ground, that no amount of technology makes up for the fact that you have to have blood, flesh, and bone on the battlefield, doing the heavy lifting, the dying, the suffering, the fighting, the killing. And so no amount of technology will ever replace that. And so that's it. I think, and to be honest, drones can get shot down. Electronic warfare can be jammed on its own self. But, you're never going to be able to replace the common soldier on the battlefield. And I think that this war proves that more than anything else. A lot of times people talk about tanks, artillery, this and that. It's the man in the weapon, the man behind the weapon, the man on the ground that ultimately is going to win or lose a war.
Well, your third example relates to your first example, which is drones. We've talked about this in previous episodes, and it's well known that I'm the idiot here and you're the expert. But this idiot is not too much of an idiot to realize that drones are relatively inexpensive. We just saw what happened at the Kremlin. And nefarious characters are everywhere. And I don't want to be Debbie Downer or anything, but I don't know. You got to be worried about, where and when they can strike. That wasn't a terribly big explosion at the Kremlin, but it sure would be big enough if it hit somebody.
Yep. No, I mean, it's there, but for every drone attacker, there's now going to be counter drone people out there, and the people who are using the drones are going to become hunted, and it's just, again, what history shows is that for every weapon, there's a counter to the weapon. Nobody's found a way to replace the man on the ground.
Okay.